So Frontiers for Young Minds is it's an open access scientific journal directed at school kids. So we are a non-profit journal. So there's no fees or charges for publishing with Frontiers for Young Minds. We're funded by external foundations, but also by a research foundation as well, so charities. We have around 350 articles published at the moment. And so the idea is top researchers adapt their research for a younger audience. One of our main aims is actually more related to teaching kids about how science is published rather than the science itself. Because obviously we hear lots of science in the news, new discoveries, the kids will see it in magazines, online, but most kids don't know how this science is actually published and how it's scrutinized by other scientists around the world. So that's obviously one of the unique selling points we have at Frontiers for Young Minds, is being able to introduce the kids to the peer review process. They submit their article to us. We then have an editorial board, which includes young reviewers between the ages of 8 and 15. And the young reviewers, like a usual peer review process, they review the article, provide feedback for the authors, offer suggestions. And then the authors then revise their manuscript until we're able to accept the manuscript and publish the article. So it's a really good way of introducing a younger audience to the scientific process, introducing a younger audience to the methods by which science is published. And also it's in real time, because a lot of the new research today can take up to 10 years to find its way into schools. And so with Frontiers for Young Minds, it's available almost immediately, which is fantastic. You have to be able to make it accessible. So what they usually have to do is explain the theme that they're working on and then relate it to a real life situation. So the kids can understand and conceptualize what it is they're trying to explain. So usually we try and ensure that the authors use lots of examples in real life situations and try and relate it to real life situations. And also we try and, as I said, we try and use the visual element a lot as well. So when in a regular article, you can explain things in 3 or 4 lines, 3, 4, 5 lines, you could probably do one image, one figure, which can explain all of it. And perhaps it could have arrows sort of explaining a bit of a process, which the kids can visualize much more easily. And also there's sort of, I think one of the biggest challenges I mentioned before is because the word count is quite small, one of the challenges for the authors is actually prioritizing what they want to include. Because obviously, usually they just want to include everything, which is fantastic. And I understand their enthusiasm, but the trying to prioritize the particular themes they want to include, that's also a big challenge as well. So the style is, I have to say, it's much more fun. We have a fantastic artist in the USA, and she draws these wonderful cartoons for us, as you probably have seen them. Really trying to be able to visualize a basic scientific concept using a cartoon, using a character. It's much more interesting because they have to approach the topic from a very different angle. Usually these researchers are completely buried in their research. That's all they think about day in, day out. And what they have to do when they write a Young Minds article is they have to almost imagine that they're standing outside their lab looking in. And so the language and the approach they use is much more intriguing. And so there's this nice mix of a different viewpoint and also the fun as well. The sort of together makes the style much more different to the original article. We have a large section dedicated to neuroscience at the moment. However, we have two new sections which were launched within the last couple of years, one in mathematics and one in astronomy. And so our strategy at the moment is to approach people from those fields and encourage them to submit to Frontiers for Young Minds. I would say the biggest challenge is trying to encourage our authors to, I think, use much simpler language. I think it may sound easy on the face of it to adapt research to a younger audience, but writing a Frontiers for Young Minds article is quite a challenge, because you're dealing with content and research that is, by its very nature, very complicated. And so trying to simplify it and bring it, a good way of doing it is we try and encourage visual sort of adaptation. So using figures and images to really help to explain certain concepts, perhaps a scientific pathway to using images can help, but also the language is probably the largest part, I would say. That's the biggest challenge. Like a regular journal, an associate editor will be responsible for editing the manuscript. So what will happen is the associate editor will invite the reviewer mentors. We call them science mentors. Okay. So what will happen is the associate editors will invite a science mentor to help review the paper. And then the science mentor will then arrange a time and a date to join with their young reviewer. It could be a classroom of kids. It could be a family member, perhaps a son or daughter, or even a niece or a nephew. And the science mentor and the young reviewer sit together, and the science mentor guides the young reviewer through the review process. And then the science mentor then passes on the young reviewer's comments to the author. So the science mentor mediates the review process. The best part, I would probably say, is just simply the enthusiasm of the authors. When somebody is studying research day in, day out, they're very passionate about their work, but they're also very passionate about disseminating that work to kids. The feedback we get is just fantastic, particularly when they see the comments from the kids themselves. So I would say that the best part is definitely the enthusiasm and the passion of the authors.